What is the nature of death? Life is what we have known since the beginning of our existence, and contemplating the end leaves us feeling hollow inside. My first experience with death happened when I was 6, when my grandmother Beatrice was killed by a cerebral hemorrhage. My next experience was at 9 with our family dog, Riker. He'd been chasing a hare through a prairie when he got tangled in rusty fence wire. The wounds became infected, and my father had to take him behind the shed. I remember hearing the piercing sound of my father's Winchester rifle, one round into old Riker's skull. These were traumatic, but nothing compared to my first up-close encounter with death in summer 1918. That summer, I saw what death was capable of. I saw it had teeth, rows of teeth, and eyes as dark as night. I am but an old man who now perceives the world through ancient eyes in early stages of cataracts. My memory has faded, yet I still remember that summer vividly. I walk amongst tombstones at Rose Hill Cemetery, tablets standing erect from front to back. Amongst the rows, I find one headstone all too familiar. The scripture is eroded, carpeted with moss, yet the name sends shivers down my spine. Duncan Kerr was his name. Like me, he grew up in the somber town of North Truro, near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The events of July 12, 1918, would become woven into the town's history, leaving one question. At what moment does instinct become intention? Can an animal become a serial killer? It was July 1918. I was a boy working in my father's lumber mill. The country had just come through the polio pandemic, but the first Spanish flu case was confirmed in March, spreading across the country by June. Widespread hysteria caused great apprehension. Several thousand transients flocked to places like Cape Cod, seeking beachside resorts. Mid-June and July brought subtropical heat waves and humid afternoons accompanied by summer cicadas. The sun licked at faces of locals, the ground smoldered and sent up disorienting haze. I was only 11 then, gap-toothed with sandy blonde hair and freckles spanning ear to ear. I just finished my shift when my childhood friends, Jonathan, Alexander, Nicholas, Anthony, and Douglas, came running up the dirt path. They asked if I'd join them for an afternoon swim in Pilgrim Lake. I dropped my work hat and we went off. We walked down trodden gravel roads through town. The heat hung like a wool blanket over low clapboard buildings. The sun glared off market windows advertising dry goods. Men moved slowly in rolled-up sleeves. Women carried white parasols against the unyielding sun. Duncan was the last one. He was reserved, a bit coy. As my mother would say, he's an underwater spirit, not the bold sun in the sky. Most of this was due to his epilepsy. Duncan would occasionally have episodes where he'd seize up, then suddenly be on the ground flailing like a fish out of water. Other children feared this. People are always afraid of things they can't understand. Duncan had been working in his father's lumber house. When we first saw him, he wore navy bibballs with no undershirt and a frayed straw hat. His face was cherry-colored. At first, Duncan was reluctant about leaving work. He thought his old man would rant if he left to play hooky. "I'll be in Dutch with my folks if I get caught," he proclaimed. "Don't be such a milksop," Nicholas said. "Your old man won't even notice you're gone." Eventually, Duncan agreed. We ran out of that sawmill fast. On our walk, we passed men by the docks laughing about old fisherman Stanley McCarthy, calling him foolish and senile. McCarthy claimed he'd seen something swimming near the inlet. I paid no attention. In the blinding afternoon light, the lake water was like a semi-molten mirror. We stripped down and dove in. The water was opaque, algae green. While called Pilgrim Lake, it flowed into the ocean through a culvert. We were less than a mile from the ocean. The serenity was interrupted. First came the smell, heavy, foul, and damp. the stench of decay like rotting lilies with faint copper beneath. Then I noticed something else. Approximately 15 meters away, the water darkened, as if a cloud slipped beneath the surface. The shape moved with purpose. It was the length of a pontoon boat. Each stroke drew closer as the dark mass moved towards Duncan, who was swimming 6 feet from me, his laughter unaware. The current shifted, cooler and heavier. My heart thudded loudly. The shape glided beneath the water, close enough that its outline sharpened and blurred. Without warning, Duncan began screaming, crying and howling all at once. His body thrashed like a trapped animal. The cloudy water turned red. Blood dribbled from his mouth. "Help me!" he shrieked. I'll never forget the terror clinging to his face. Then he was pulled under. John screamed, then Douglas, then everyone. And then I was screaming too. I made no effort to help Duncan. I just paddled towards the beach. I didn't look back. We climbed out fast and ran, screaming. Norman Bannigan saw us and phoned the marshal immediately. People brushed off our claims as children's imaginations until we saw William Ross. He traipsed out of his tailor shop, tortoise glasses perched low on his nose. He was a symbol of authority, patient and methodical. "Mr. Ross, something got at Duncan." Mr. Ross believed Duncan merely had an epileptic episode. Nevertheless, he agreed to help. We returned to the beach. The area was unpromisingly quiet. No birds, no bugs, just silence. My father always said the absence of sound meant a predator was nearby. Mr. Ross removed his coat and stockings. He handed me his glasses, saying, "Hold this for me, would you, son?" Then he dove into the murky water. Soon others joined the search. A crowd gathered. Mr. Ross's head bobbed out for air. He dove down, then came up struggling, holding on to something. Then I saw it again. A blurred shape moved quickly beneath him. Suddenly, Mr. Ross cried out in agony. His body was yanked back and forth with brutal force. His scream didn't sound human, more like a wounded animal. I watched his body dragged under, his hand reaching out. It lasted only seconds, but felt like hours. Then the water was tranquil again. Moments later, Mr. Ross breached the surface. Blood stained the water. He was in the shallows, but could only paddle. At the edge, he began pulling himself out, clawing at sand. Blood pooled from his right leg, an entire sector of his thigh torn off, bone protruding. A man used his shirt as tourniquet. 4 men carried Mr. Ross to a waiting carriage. Mr. Ross died on the way to the hospital. Hypovolemic shock. The bite severed his femoral artery. That evening, my father received a phone call. Another boy was attacked. 14-year-old Clarence Dunn, half a mile downstream. The beast bit his left leg, stripping off flesh. Fortunately, it let go. Clarence would survive, but bear scars for life. Just before Duncan was attacked, I saw something. An eye. One empty black eye staring back at me, pupil blackened like coal. 5 days later, Duncan's body was found floating near the inlet. His remains had distended, skin ashen from decomposition. He'd been bitten in half around the abdomen. Chaos ensued. Gunshots came from the lake for weeks. Dynamite sticks thrown into water. It was open season. Rumors circulated. Wampanoag tribal elders declared it was Mishipishu, a water spirit with scales and claws. Duncan's death was penalty against his greedy father for contaminating the lake. Fishermen asserted it was the Nahant sea serpent. Whatever it was never caught. Things turned quiet. Soon Labor Day arrived. Once enough time passed, people chose not to speak about it anymore. It's been more than 70 years. I still live in my family home along the coastal inlet. Some mornings I stare out at the open water. The channel's navigability declined over the years. Mr. Kerr's lumber mill ceased operations in 1921. My father closed shop too. Workers walked off, fearing it would return. 6 summers back, a little boy went missing while swimming in East Harbor. Coast Guard searched but never found him. They say Undertow dragged him out to sea. But I wonder. Every time I read a swimmer goes missing, I ask myself, was it an accident or was some enigmatic power at work? Story 2. This happened roughly November 2025. I live in southwest Scotland by myself in an attached 2-bedroom house with my 6 cats. A little history first. When I was 15, 27 now, I was convinced I saw a skinwalker or wendigo in my parents' back garden one night while watching creepypasta stories. I remember yellow eyes tilted at the top of my dad's 10-foot shed when I was bringing in my parents' 2 huskies who were yelping to come inside. This was roughly 4 a.m. during late autumn. I always convinced myself I'd imagined things due to sleep deprivation. But then this happened. The night was like any other. I was finishing housework, cleaning litter trays, and taking the bin to the curb for morning collection. I went to the back door, unlocking it and stepping outside. The winter, frost-bitten air whipped at my face hard. I was frozen to the bone immediately. I closed and locked the door, planning to enter through my front door when returning. I threw 2 bags into the bin and grabbed the handle. I unlatched the gate and pushed the bin into the close, connecting my house to my neighbor's. I noticed it was oddly quiet. Too quiet. Like the sound of the world stopped at once. I tried ignoring the growing dread in my stomach and brought the bin to my front garden. That's when I started hearing the singing. It was 1 a.m. on a Tuesday. I couldn't see anyone about. No cars, no animals. But there was an odd voice singing something. I couldn't make out the words. What terrified me most was that I couldn't pinpoint where the voice was coming from. I looked around in panic only once, then stopped and gripped the bin tightly. I quickly placed my bin at the curb and walked quickly to the front door. I refused to speak or turn around as I felt a dark presence. I felt it telling me not to turn around or answer or I'd regret it. I fumbled with my keys and got the door open. I practically jumped inside, slamming the door and tripping over my own feet before whipping around and locking it. All I could hear was ringing in my ears whilst I panted with sweat rolling down my forehead. I went to sit on my couch, turning off all lights. Hours passed with every small sound triggering my fight or flight. My cats were all on edge at each downstairs window and door, doing soft growls whilst whipping their tails angrily, fur fuzzed up, eyes locked on their chosen watch posts. I occasionally checked the locks on windows and doors. I kept stimming on the couch, blanket wrapped around myself as makeshift protection. The silence and dread never lifted. I eventually passed out. The next thing I remember is hearing bin lorries coming onto my street. I was so relieved. My cats were settled in their usual morning routine, begging for food and playing with toys. The sounds of birds chirping, cars driving, and people talking lifted that dread off my shoulders. I don't know what it was, but I'll never forget that voice singing in the dead silence, coming from everywhere but nowhere. If I've learned anything from similar stories, you don't speak to the voices. Get somewhere safe quickly and pray it leaves you alone.